Thank you, Cathy. In your headlines, Judicial Service Commission has accepted a recommendation by the Judicial Conduct Committee to refer a matter involving Western Cape Judge President John Hlophe to a tribunal for investigation. It says it will now approach the Chief Justice to appoint the tribunal to investigate complaints of assault and abusive language lodged by Deputy Judge President Patricia Goliath. Leader of Change Start Now, Roger Jardine, says he has engaged former ANC veteran Mavuso Msimang about joining the newly launched political movement. Msimang resigned from the ruling party last week, where he cited government failures as the reason for his departure. And intense fighting has continued in parts of the Gaza Strip regarded by Israel as Hamas strongholds. Hamas officials in Gaza estimate that about 18,000 Palestinians have been killed since the conflict began, while Israel says it's lost over 100 soldiers. Details on these and other stories at 11. Cathy has your SAFM market update.
The rand is currently trading at 19 rand 5 cents to the dollar, 23 rand 88 to the pound, and 20 rand 48 to the euro. Markets in Asia ended mixed, the JSE mainly weaker in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are flat this hour. Gold is trading at $1,993, platinum $919 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $76.30 a barrel.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, we continue the conversation on the talking point. How do we then ensure that we can look out for scams, better informed, so that we don't get ourselves entangled in situations that we were not anticipating? Dr. Shahida Jansen, both Nazia and the Brigadier says some of these things are obvious if you apply logic. If something is too good to be true, then chances are it is. But how do we even begin to know?
Morning, Cathy, again. I want to approach this conversation from the standpoint of reminding us, all of us, of what is actually our human nature. Who are we as human beings? And if we look at our human nature, we find that we are social beings. All right, and if we also look at what is at stake here, it's principles like honesty and trust. Those are universal principles that most people, adhere to. Most, whether they're rural or wherever they find themselves, people believe in honesty, and so we have been designed that in our innate ability is to cooperate and to communicate with others. And so the minute we meet people, we want them to trust us, we believe in them, and we tend to be receptive, to persuasion. So I heard what Nazia was saying about the abuse and the manipulation. But remember, many times, if you look at romantic scams, for example, there's not even much abuse going on from the persuasion. People will hand over sums of money. And what they find also, especially with romantic scams, often the person has handed over about 8, 9, 10 times they've handed out money before, they begin to realize, but I've actually been scammed. So contrary to what most people believe, that somehow you should be immune to scamming, what I'm approaching it from the perspective that precisely because we are social, all of us are in fact vulnerable to being scammed. So that's just where my point of departure. So I don't think it's necessary to approach this from a very narrow moral perspective, that you somehow see yourself as, and that's why when people are scammed, most people feel ashamed, they feel embarrassed, they want to hide themselves, not just because they feel they should have known, but also because their trust in another human being has been violated, which is a universal contract that people share with each other. I'm not saying that, we should just lay back and allow ourselves to be scammed. No, that's a different conversation. But I think where I want to start the conversation is to say that we are social beings. Can you imagine if every time we meet somebody, every time we have a conversation, that we now first have to think through, can I trust this person? Is this safe? We don't do that. It will mean that we're not able to cooperate and communicate with others. So I just first wanted to make that point.
That also suggests to me, Dr. Jansen, that this is probably what the scammers rely on. That
Absolutely.
that they know that people are going to be too ashamed to put their hand up or to speak out about what has happened to them, which is why they're able to keep reinventing themselves in different iterations across society.
Yeah, and because you see, scammers know psychology better than what we know psychology. They understand that people have an innate desire to believe and to trust. And people, even sometimes, because what the research keeps on confirming is what I'm telling you now, that highly intelligent people, when they're approached by strangers, they tend to go along. I'm not saying everybody goes along, but the research keeps on confirming that human beings generally, we want to trust, we want to believe, because actually, even if you think of language, right? Um, Language is a form of cooperation. Um, it's a way in which we relate to each other. Now that is what happens every day, all day, and also, if you look at that, is why across communities, across society, you will find that liars are hated. They are, and often they will have ways in which to deal with people who lie or to minimize lies and all of that, because it actually interferes with our ability to be social. So Cathy, the other thing that I want to say is that we also often reduce the scamming to individuals, who get scammed. But if we just stand back and we look at society, we will find that because of the loss of our morality and the moral fabric of society, we find that we've become a society, perhaps, where scamming becomes the order of the day. How many times we see corruption? Even if we look at our history of apartheid, was apartheid not just a big scam? How can you think that some can have and others cannot have based on the color of one's skin? So I think if we also just open up our understanding because of scamming. Scamming is about trickery. It's a deception. It's about a sleight of hand, And if we think about the way we construct our societies nowadays, the extreme inequality. I mean, if I'm here in the Western Cape, certain parts of the Western Cape, you think you are somewhere that's very smart, all right? You just cross the street a few the roads down further below, then you find yourself in a completely different world. It's quite deceptive. If I enter Johannesburg from Sandton, I would have a certain perception of Johannesburg. But just around the other side, I find, oops, this looks very different. So we're living in a world also that is around um, deception. I mean, it is not possible sometimes for us to think we're middle class. We don't have to think about what we're going to eat today. Every day in South Africa, there are children who's dying of starvation in South Africa every day. So I think I also want to open up and make the idea of scamming also a social issue and not just the narrow psychological issue of some of us becoming to scamming. We have to work on the moral fabric of the society so that people begin to share more the values of honesty. Because how else? Because there's no sharp way that we're just going to be able to protect ourselves other than beginning to understand that we're going to have to work on in being more inclusive generally as a society.
Nasia, in terms of your work, are there different ways in which you categorize scams that people often would be facing? And I wonder if you would be able just to run us through some of that so that we're also able to get a better understanding of just how wide and spread out some of these schemes might be?
Yeah, so scams are definitely defined based on
Nazia, I'm not hearing you clearly. It looks like you've moved away from your bit. I'm not sure if you have us on speakerphone, but that connection to you is not sounding very clear. But we can continue and try again.
Hi, is this better?
Let's go ahead. I'll let you know if we need to call you back.
No problem. So yeah, scams are actually defined into various categories. One of the most common scams are the 419 scams or advanced fee type scams, where a consumer is entitled to actually make a deposit or a payment for either particular goods or services or any product or that they want to be able to purchase, and you pay me this little money in advance, and then after that you'll get the product and we'll pay the rest later. So the advanced fee scams, allowing people to pay for things in advance without actually receiving anything. Investment type scams, where consumers are asked to invest in a particular type of financial instrument or maybe a business opportunity, or maybe just to grow your current savings in an insurance type policy environment. And this type of investment or growth, wealth growth, is used also as a type of scam to manipulate you. Other types of scams include things that are a little more technical, like cyber-type scams, where malware is used, where hacking is used. Those type of scams can even go a little further in the sense that it becomes online impersonation. It becomes manipulation of your family and friends, where they become where they are being extorted by the scammers online. Unfortunately, in some cases, it even gets even worse when it becomes things like sextortion, and the actual person who's being impersonated is sextorted. If you don't pay this money, I'm going to release these images of you into the internet, and everybody's going to see it. And again, like the doctor mentioned earlier, these types of scams are working on the various human nature of ourselves. We are a trusting people. So when your family says, "I need help, I'm in an emergency," you are probably going to hand over that money for your child. "I'm stuck, I don't have money to come home." You're going to give that money. They're going to pretend to be those people. In other cases, you're going to be superficial in the sense, "Oh my God, somebody's got pornographic photos of me and they're going to publish it online." You're afraid. You don't want that type of humiliation in your life. So you're going to hand over that money. You're going to pay for it. The other thing behind it as well is we are also prone to to meeting the social standards and norms of life, where I want to drive that fancy car, or I want to have that expensive outfit, or I want to go on this special holiday. So I'm going to invest my money, or I'm going to buy this product that looks fantastic. It's too good to be true, but you know what? It might just be real, so let me try it out. We are superficial in that, as humans, we are superficial in that type of behavior. So yes, we will succumb to that greed, to that need, to that want to be successful appeal that the scammer is making available for us, and then we fall victim. I think what's most important is that we need to understand that the scammer doesn't only target vulnerable people. It targets businesses, it targets educated people, it targets the general person on the street. It does not discriminate. And you may try as hard as you can, and you might still be victim to a scam. But the responsibility for you is to make sure that you do your due diligence before you engage, before you actually take that next step.
You know, Dr. Jansen, you touched on this earlier around the trusting nature of human beings, and also just an innate need to be able to trust the other person. With so many fraudsters and scamsters, lurking about, how do we try and vet people? So if you have somebody, for example, on the corner of the street asking for money or asking for food, how do you check whether this person is not going to go back home to their house and has found a way of making a quick buck, and perhaps is not as in need as they may pretend to be?
Exactly. And so life is complex, and there's so much that we're not in control of. So I say to people, when you decide to give somebody money, it is not your place now to go and find out, are they going to use it for alcohol or drugs or whatever. You have to, that you can only make the decision that this person is asking for money for food, and I'm giving them money. You can't go and control, what they are going to do. So I think it's also just that humility, and that is why it's important for us to understand that being human opens us up to be vulnerable, which is also what makes us so profound human beings, because, of the uncertainties that we always dealing with. So one of the key ways, actually, and it's going to sound contradictory what I'm going to say now, is how you can actually steel yourself against being a victim of scamming, is to be aware of your vulnerability. So I know I'm very trusting and open, so I always ask, I check with the people around me in situations where I can. I never just make decisions completely on my own, but I consult with those that I trust, etc. So because one of the things that makes you actually vulnerable is to be arrogant, is to think that you are beyond, you are so clever and so bright, that you can't be a victim of scamming. So those are the other thing that I want to say, Cathy, is that because we have entered into this world of individualism, we no longer come together enough where we cooperate in groups so that we learn to care for one another and to be part of tribes. We still have, our tribal names, our clan names, but often we no longer engage, in that socialness with our clans, because those are the things that throughout the ages have helped to protect us from being scammed. Because on your own, we can be vulnerable and people are very lonely. And that is why the romantic scams have taken up off in the way that it has. Because, and you find some of the readings that I've done in America, for example, they found that men were most vulnerable, men in their 50s, I think, was most vulnerable to these romantic scams. People are divorced. People are isolated and estranged from close family.
Sure.
Yeah. So those are the things that I think can help us to strengthen us, but we need to understand of being human, and what about being human makes us open for scamming.
We've got so many people that are sharing their different stories on, some of the scams that they've experienced. We'll play some of those voice notes after this break.
The award-winning SAFM playwriting competition is back.
I remember a time when my grandmother, she would make sure that she never missed that story.
SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound.
I mean, I remember Pipito, she remember all of those. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it was fiction.
The theater of the mind. And to create a 1-hour radio play in English, get writing now and submit your play before the 22nd of January 2024. For more information, visit safm.co.za.
Rand Water is concerned about the significant increase of water consumption in its areas of supply. The increase in water consumption is putting severe strain on Rand Water's distribution network. To save water, please do not wash your cars with hose pipes. Use buckets. Water your garden with sprinklers between sunset and sunrise. Do not wash your pavements with hose pipes. Use brooms. Repair your leaking taps. Cover your swimming pools to avoid quick evaporation. Shower instead of bathing in a tub.
This message is sponsored by Rand Water in partnership with City of Joburg, City of Ekurhuleni, and City of Tshwane.
Botswana qualified for the BNP Group Africa Cup Finals 2023 with an unbeaten record in the qualifiers and became winners of the Southern African Cup in May, while Malawi finished runners-up by winning 2 of their 4 games, whereas Mozambique also qualified for the BNP Group Africa Cup Finals in a spectacular manner, pipping Eswatini and Mauritius on net run rate in the Southern African Cup. Witness the thrilling action from 11 to 19 December, live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Morning, Cathy. This is Magdalene from Bloom. To be financially scammed, I learned that anyone can scam you because I was scammed by my own auditor and his friend, promising that we are going to get a truck once we pay 300,000 in 2009. And that thing never came up potentially. It was a scam, Cathy. You know, since that time, I learned that we need to make use of our talents, our gifts, our hands, and our time to be successful in life and get the best marketing. That's where we're going to make it. And that's what keeps me going now. No more scams. Magdalene from Bloom, thank you.
Good morning, Cathy. George Makosa, Ekabecha here. Cathy, the issue of scam will never end. It started right at the beginning of humankind, and it feeds on two things, stupidity and greed, and that is a human nature. Remember, we even have the politician of quadrillions. He was scammed. But the problem with people is to try to protect the scammers by trying to make us believe that they were not scammed. I thank you.
My name is Cathy and listeners. I'll be brief, but then there was a scam back in 2020. My dad got robbed. So what happened was there was a group of people. It's a cult. So you were told to go and buy silver mercury, and then remember, silver mercury is like 2.5 liters of silver mercury. It's roughly 60,000. So there was an Arab guy. He promised them that he will turn this silver mercury into a money. Like money will be popping from underground. Like there will be a ritual. People drink water, and then specialized water, and then they wait for the Arab guy to turn the silver mercury into large sums of money. So it was my dad and his friends, like there were 4 of them. So if you do your math, 60,000 times 4, that's a lot of money, because the Arab guy will just take the silver mercury and only just disappear, and then leave them in that particular house where they were performing the rituals. So it's popular in Mpumalanga. I'm not sure about Gauteng, but in Mpumalanga this thing is so popular. I'm not sure whether you are aware of this.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen. Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
No, I am definitely not aware of it. It's the first time I've heard of it. Silver mercury. Also, I mean, sure, wow, what a scam. Mulatelo, you in Polokwane, I understand you also have a story to share on being scammed.
Yes, Cathy, Ligai.
Rona Ligai.
Rona, out of my Mutuchanchabele, Pilanila, Cathy, I was once scammed. You know the story last week, Saturday, in this way. This guy, I know one of the guys. He's a Congolese. Actually, I know his father. His father passed away. So it happened that, I met the son. But what happened last week, the son introduced me to one of the guys in Congo. Say, no, his uncle is a general, Mbala. He wanted to talk to me over the phone. Well, I said, no, give him my phone. He gave him my number, And then he started to liaise with me, and then he said, no, he's going to send the son to South Africa. And then the son is coming there with 5 million rands, and the money was distributed to the countries during the COVID. So it's 5 million cash. So he wanted to come this side, and I must help him to invest the money in construction and all those other things. I said, well, fine, let him come. As long as it's a fair play, then it's good. Cathy, last week, when they phoned me to say, no, the son is getting into the truck to South Africa on Saturday, and he will arrive here on Sunday morning. So probably see me on Saturday. Well, it happened, and then they phoned me to say, no, the guy is landed. I must go and see him at other certain lodge. When I get there, it was the guy, the son of the guy I know, and that the alleged son of the General Mbala in Congo. They said to me, look, and then General said, no, well, you talk to him, you finish the story, we are here. And then they have the money. The money is covered with the powder. So they put 200 rands and then and 200 rands in the basin. They put chemical inside. So that chemical cleaned the powder. The man was not seen as money, but after they put that powder, that liquid chemical in the basin where the money is, that chemical cleans the money completely. It becomes a very clear money that you can never doubt that this is not the money. And it was a real money, Betty.
Sure. Mohlahlana, I wonder if this is not money that people make in your cash and transit heists and other...
No. It was not that. That one has a string. It's not a string. It's a white powder, Cathy. And if you look at it, it's like a coupon. You see a coupon.
Okay.
A coupon. There is a coupon that when you write a paper, then there is another copy that appears after you put the coupon in between. That money is like that, but it's the greyish color of that coupon.
And it's South African rands.
Yeah, South African money. After they put it in the basin, they pour the liquid. The liquid is in the bottle. Looks like it's a wine. When they took that bottle out, I said, no, I don't drink wine. They said, no, don't worry. They pour that chemical into the basin. The man was cleared. It was clean like nothing on earth. Now,
sure.
They said the total of money, it was almost 700 rands. They give it to me to seal it, and then they say, no, you can go and deposit it and tell us if it's not the right money, so we can come and complete the deal.
All right.
And then I said, no, it's fine, don't worry.
Yeah, look, Mohlahlana, the
But in short,
yes.
What I'm trying to say is short. After that, they said to me, the whole of money is in the truck with the driver. So I must give them 28,000 rand to release the money that the truck driver is holding. So the driver can release the money, we can clean the money and make the money. That's where the problem started.
All right. Mohlahlana, we're going to have to leave it there. That's all I have time for. But, incredulous what some of these scams entail. Nazia, parting shot from you very briefly, also responding to our listeners.
Well, the scam that you just mentioned, Ren, I just like to mention briefly that if you are actually approached by anybody to allow them to use your bank account to send or receive money, or just use your bank card and you have to give them your PIN, please don't. It is illegal. You will be considered as a money mule, and you could actually be charged as an accomplice in the crime. So don't hand over your banking details in any way, and don't assist anybody with moving money between different bank accounts in any fashion, because if it is in fact a scam or a crime, you will be charged as a facilitator in that process.
Yeah, and it sounds like Mohlahlana also needs to go to the police to report what has happened by all accounts. Dr. Jansen, parting shot from you, please.
I just want to say, that just like the roots of a tree will keep it grounding even during hurricanes, it is important that we revisit our values and our morals, because the values and the morals will protect you against some of what gets you're exposed to, because it's also through, you hear people talking about the greed, right? And is it the stupidity, or is it when greed actually makes us stupid? So that would be my parting shot, is for us to revisit our values.
Dr. Jansen, thank you so much for your contribution. Nazia, to you as well. And, you heard from Brigadier Lamprecht earlier. Do go and report these cases. Sometimes you might unwittingly be an accomplice to crime.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
The top stories this hour: bail denied in the UFH murder case, and the new party courts ANC veteran. A very good morning. The Dimbaza Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape has denied bail to the University of Fort Hare's head of investigations, Isaac Blaikes. He's facing 2 counts of the premeditated murder of the Varsity's fleet manager, Petrus Roots, and Mboneli Vesele, who was the bodyguard of the Vice-Chancellor, Sakela Buhlungu. Delivering judgment, the court said it was not satisfied that Blaikes' personal circumstances are different from other people. It added that Blaikes may interfere with witnesses or intimidate them if he's released on bail. The court described Blaikes as a dangerous and dishonest person. The case against rapper and TV presenter Jub Jub has been postponed to the 5th of February in the Joburg Magistrates Court. He's facing charges of rape, attempted murder, and assault charges. Jub Jub, whose real name is Mulemoa Arohanye, handed himself over at the Brixton police station earlier this year after an arrest warrant was issued against him. Sashin Naidu reports.
Jub Jub made a brief appearance in the dock this morning before his case was postponed to February next year. This time around, the matter was postponed to allow his defense team time to thoroughly study the state's case and prepare for trial. He is currently out on bail of 10,000 rand. As part of his bail conditions, he has been ordered by the court to hand over his passport to the state, as he is not allowed to leave the country until the conclusion of his case. Sasha Naidu, SABC News, at the Johannesburg Magistrates Court.
The Judicial Services Commission has accepted a recommendation by the Judicial Conduct Committee to refer a matter involving Western Cape Judge President John Hlophe to a tribunal for investigation. It says it will now approach the Chief Justice to appoint the tribunal to investigate complaints of assault and abusive language lodged by Deputy Judge President Patricia Goliath. Hlophe laid a counter-complaint of racism which allegedly involved the use of the K-word. The JCS says that it has also decided to advise the President that Hlophe be suspended pending the finalization of the tribunal process. The JSC found that there was no prima facie evidence that substantiates the allegations of racism and the use of the K-word by Goliath. The leader of the Change Starts Now, Roger Jardine, says he has engaged former ANC veteran Mavuso Msimang about joining the newly launched political movement. Msimang resigned from the ruling party last week, where he cited government failures as the reason for his departure. Jardine was speaking at the launch of the new movement in Riverdale, Joburg yesterday, where he described Msimang as a true embodiment of the ANC in the past.
These outstanding leaders, the veterans, the stalwarts, their values and ethos applies as much today as it did 30 years ago. when the First Democratic Republic was founded. I want to salute in particular Mavuso Msimang. He is the living embodiment of the ANC, of our parents and our grandparents. Indeed, he is the living embodiment of our ANC. I have sought his counsel and advice and will continue to do so in the hope that he will join our movement and guide us to a better place for all South Africans.
Joburg's emergency services say they are on high alert following a warning issued by the Weather Service of severe thunderstorms expected in most parts of Gauteng today. Spokesperson Robert Mulawuzi has urged residents to exercise caution, particularly motorists, and to keep a close eye on children to ensure that they stay away from river streams.
From our side as the City of Johannesburg Emergency Management Services, we remain on high alert, monitoring all 7 regions of the city so that if there's any emergencies which might have been reported, we can be able to respond as quickly as possible.
And intense fighting has continued in parts of the Gaza Strip regarded by Israel as Hamas strongholds. Hamas officials in Gaza estimate that about 18,000 Palestinians have been killed since the conflict began, while Israel says it has lost over 100 soldiers. The BBC's Yolanda Nell.
As fierce battles rage on, Israel says dozens of Hamas members have surrendered in northern Gaza, where its forces began their ground offensive more than 6 weeks ago. That's been denied by Hamas. In Khan Yunis in the south, where it's thought Hamas leaders may be hiding, Israeli tanks have now reached the city's main north-to-south road, and warplanes have been attacking an area in the west. Qatar has said it's continuing efforts to mediate a ceasefire and free more than 100 remaining hostages held by Hamas, but is not seeing the same willingness to negotiate as before.
The top story at 11 o'clock, the Dimbaza Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape has denied bail to the University of Fort Hare's head of investigations, Isaac Blaikies. Back with headlines at past. For SAFM News, Gemudupi Makhalemele.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Chelsea FC is not impressed with their current position. They want to ensure Sheffield United grabs nothing at Stamford Bridge.
Raheem Sterling, the big dipper, Chelsea 11.
Meanwhile, Sheffield United are also not comfortable in the danger zone.
McBurney's header, and it drops into the far corner of the net.
Who will enjoy the festive season with victory? The Blues or the Blades? This is the Premier League. Catch the exhilarating clash between Chelsea FC and Sheffield United FC on Saturday, 16 December at 4 p.m. live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM is sharing the festive spirit by giving away 5,000 Rand to 10 lucky winners. To enter, SMS SAFM Festive, followed by your name and what the festive season means to you to 41391. And you could win. Tune in to SAFM throughout December and we could be calling you. SMSs are charged at R1.50. Free SMSs, free minutes and SMS bundles do not apply. Terms and conditions apply. Visit safm.co.za for more information. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
It's 8 after 11 o'clock. We continue with the final hour of the show. And coming up in this hour, we're going to look further into the story around the Northern Cape Education Department. And it's really the controversy around the food parcels for the elderly that was part of an event which they held last week. Now, we received a call from one of our listeners, Ronald. He's in the Northern Cape in Marydale, and the department hosted an event there, which was to honor the elderly and to thank them for their contribution to society and to making sure that their grandchildren go to school. That's part of how the event was explained to us. There, of course, a lot of questions around, the thinking and the rationale for the event. The point of it is that this event included the handover of food parcels to, according to the spokesperson for the Department of Education, 250 elderly people in this particular ward. And these are the people that had been identified by the municipality to receive these food parcels. What we have been told by our listeners is that not only have those people not received food parcels as promised or purported by the Department of Education, if you are on that list and are not or were not an ANC member, then you did not receive a food parcel. It automatically disqualified you from receiving a food parcel. The MEC for Education was supposed to be on this show today at this time because they are the ones that wanted to give a right of reply from the MEC. They have since changed their mind and said the matter is sub judice, so they are no longer speaking on it. Ronald February is a ward councillor in Ward 2. He's with the Siyathemba Community Movement. He's the one that raised this issue on air in the open line. Ronald, good morning to you. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning, Katie, and good morning to the listeners. And thank you for having me back again.
Sure. Priscilla Isaacs is a DA member of the provincial legislature and also speaks for the party on matters of education. Priscilla, good morning to you.
Very good morning to you as well as for our listeners.
Hi, Priscilla.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me. Very good morning to you and the listeners.
All right, yes, I can hear you a lot better. The first time round, the connection wasn't clear. So, Ronald, last week you raised this matter about this event held in the Northern Cape and the issue of food parcels being used fraudulently, being distributed unequally to members of the community. When the Department of Education spokesperson Jeffrey came on, he basically denied all of the allegations that you had made, and he promised to give us the documentation that we had asked for in terms of this event, the procurement for it, the food parcels, the criteria that was used to identify beneficiaries. And he said on air that he would do that. Something has changed because they've since not only done that, they also no longer speaking on this matter. What did you make of what he had to say and the explanations given by the department?
Katie, I think just to start off with, in general, Katie, I don't think our problem is with the fact that food parcels are handing out to people in need. I think that the big problem for us lies with the fact that these parcels are being used to drive people into a certain direction. The process which is followed in terms of handling this distribution is completely fraudulent, and it's used for party gains. Now, Katie, that being said, last week Friday, the province were there, the General Secretary of the province were there. They had a People's Assembly of the ANC, which was very poorly attended. And we heard after that assembly from some of the members that in that assembly they have told people that they are going to give them some food parcels the Monday. On Sunday evening, we heard that the truck is coming in with the food parcels, and that ANC volunteers is walking around to members to say they must come back to the ANC and they will receive food parcels. And we thought that, no, this can't be possible. On Monday, I inquired from the municipal officials if they are aware of any of this. And nobody knows anything within the municipality. And this is because the event was held in my ward. Now, the explanation that the department gave just doesn't make sense. If you are dealing with learners and their parents, then surely you would involve the schools to start with. You would get from the schools which parents is in need, which learners need it, and so on. And to call it now a Christmas party with the elderly just doesn't make sense at all. I would have understand if you're saying it's elderly of school children, because you can't even, from the elders that were there, you can't even identify which of them have children at school, or if there's any of the households which is in need, because the children at school has been identified to come from a house of need. Secondly, from what I can get from his reply, there is definitely no information they have around the process. I don't even know if they have the budget. He couldn't explain why the MEC's family is constantly involved in the in providing services when his department is in town. So their explanation just doesn't make sense at all, Katie. And on top of that, to then want to turn it that I have to an extent politicized it in any way is just ridiculous, because I came to the event alone. I addressed him alone, and there is nothing like that that is explaining that makes sense to us. So I'm really not buying anything that they've given you, and I was hoping that they would come on this morning and give some light to all of us and to our elders especially.
I want to read a message that we received from one of our listeners who says, I'm one of the members in Siatemba Priska. I agree with what Mr. February said, and this happens a lot. If you're not part of the ANC, you don't get anything. They did a door-to-door. They took my mom's name and age, but because they know I'm a member of the SGB, they told my mom that she can't get the hamper. The day before, at 12 o'clock at night, they were doing door-to-door only at the houses of ANC people. But the people who they said they were reserving hampers for did not receive those hampers. Does that sound about right, Ronald? That not only are hampers not going to the rightful beneficiaries, as has been identified by the municipality or by the education department, they're now asking, or rather they're now handing these hampers out in the dead of night so that people don't see who gets a hamper and who doesn't.
No, Katie, it's not. But that is what the MEC is saying in the wall in front of all the people. That hampers will be handed out at night. But he starts off by saying that his events, he's only inviting MEC councillors. And because I'm not an MEC councillor, or there is, I'm not going to be at his event. So anything that he's doing there is for ANC members. And he's saying that this is only the start. He said it in the event to the elders that's there. This is only the start. They must come and see what he's going to do next year. So people are actually now being threatened that if they are not going to be part of the ANC, they are not going to receive anything that they are bringing to town. So they take these parcels, the 15 that was left, they take them out, and they are saying they are going to hand them out at night. And I can confirm to you now, Katie, and people on the ground can confirm to it, that the ANC volunteers continued at night to go to people and to give them parcels that is aligned to them. People are now at the point where they are saying, if this is the way that we are going to be treated, then we can't speak up. Now, I don't understand what I asked the MECs, give us the list of people that received. Secondly, why are you not bringing all these parcels to the wall and give them to old people? It doesn't matter, Katie, whether the elderly support the local party, the DA, or the ANC. But there would be accountability, at least, to see that who got. So when the next time comes, then at least we can say, let's move on to the next person, because this person got. Now, the problem is nobody knows who got any parcels. I spoke to an elderly lady yesterday who said there's 3 people in the longest street in my ward. Wilgerstraat is the longest street in my ward. 3 people got. because that street, all of them there in that street, is not members of the ANC, which is wrong, Katie.
Sure. All right. Priscilla, let me bring you in here as a member of the DA in the provincial legislature, and specifically with the portfolio of education. Are you aware of what has been happening based on what Ronald and some of our other listeners in the Northern Cape have said?
Yes, Cathy. I came to hear of it from our councillors in Siatimba on Friday. Now, this is a program that we are unaware of as the committee that serves on education. Although it's a good initiative, delivering parcels to the elderly and the vulnerable, this falls under the mandate of social development and not under the mandate of the Department of Education. Now, we know that the MEC is residing in Siatimba. He is from Priska, and I think that's why the parties were hosted in Priska and Marydale, and then I think the other one was held in Berkeley West. And there must be a distinction between state and party, and I don't think the ANC has got that ability to distinguish between state and party. So if the MEC hosted these Christmas parties, he should have done it through the structures that he accounts for. He should have worked through the district offices of Department of Education or even through local schools in order to identify members of the community, of the school community, of education community, so that they can engage with them. Even the purpose for the party, where they say they wanted to engage with people in terms of the structures that are vandalized. In the committee, we were discussing that issue, and we said, okay, gave specific guidelines where we wanted the NEC to come back and report on them, because it is a big concern for us if our schools are vandalized. And we view it in a very serious light. So we recommended, in order to stop the vandalism at schools and the properties, that a specialized task team needed to be established, and they should have engaged in finding long-term solutions involving all role players, which means the school community, which means the district officers, and even if need never gave a mandate to the NEC to say host parties for elderly in order to curb school vandalism. So it doesn't make sense to me when their spokesperson argue that that was the purpose of the gathering. Once again, if he wanted to work through the municipality, he should have acknowledged protocol and worked through the ward councillor. But because the municipality is not a prominent role player in the Department of Education, he should have engaged with the different spheres in his department, whether it was district or local, and worked through the school communities in order to serve their needs.
Well,
yes.
Go ahead, Priscilla.
No, I must make mention that the Department of Education is one of the top 3 underperforming departments in our province. And in terms of irregular expenditure, no radical steps are taken or no consequence management processes or governance structures are implemented in that department. They lack consequence management in terms of officials. They are underperforming in terms of the finances as well as our performance at schools. And there's inadequate monitoring and review compliances. And even in our committee, the ANC doesn't keep the department accountable. It's always the DA that raises the questions. It's always the DA that address issues in the committee. But they are silent in terms of the poor performance of this department, and especially in terms of the fact that they have such a high number of irregular expenditure.
Yeah, look, that something as important as food, especially for the vulnerable, would be used this way, is obviously absolutely shameful. And again, unfortunate that the MEC decided to no longer be part of this conversation. I want to play some of the voice notes that we've received from listeners that are from the area who attended these events, or who were some of those that were promised hampers. This is part of what they have to say of what has happened.
The Special Investigating Unit continues to intensify the fight against corruption. maladministration and malfeasance by conducting investigations in the affairs of government departments, municipalities and state-owned entities with integrity and professionalism. SIU investigators do not ask for money from people who are subjects of investigations. Do not be a victim of bogus investigators claiming to be from the SIU. This message is brought to you by Special Investigating Unit, striking against corruption.
Individual brilliance always adds a superb vibe to the team. Sami Sohail of Malawi holds the highest batting average in 2020 internationals. Dhruv Surya of Botswana is the quickest to reach 50 wickets in 2020 internationals, and Francisco Kouana of Mozambique is the first player to score a century and take 5 wickets in the same 2020 internationals. Catch these African stars in action of the BNP Group Africa Cup this December, live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Wanneer we praten. Ik was bij die zaak. En toen zei Dijmpie, hierdie ding. As er die politiek is 'n organisasie. Hulle gee vir die ou mense kos. Ons het gevraag vir die kos. Die kos kom te eet in die kos. Sodat die kos te eet, die word die hempers uitgedra. Ons weet nie waar die hempers uitgedra nie, want ons het die hempers gekry. Ons het dit kos gekry.
Ek het hoor hulle praat van ons ou mense moet Migasal toe gaan. En daar's hempers vir die ou mense. Hulle het nie gepraat van wie die ou mense is. Toe ek daar kom, ek en my kleinkind het ek toe sê ek kom van die krywer studium en bly daar buite as ouma gaan jou roep. En hulle het nog kos en goed vir die mense as jy om te eet. Maar na dit, toe bid hulle eers, Jacobus Prins het gebid, en toe sien ek Chris en kom al net sy skoonma daar uit by ons tafel. Toe roep ek vir Chris, toe vra ek hom nou, wat gaat aan? Hy die skoonma, toe sê, nee my ousie, ek kan niks sê nie, want ek is week 5 aan Smarty Town. En toe preek die man, wat so zwaar gekry het, deur in Waverland weet ek nie, wat misvloere gehet het. Toe antwoord ek, ons het dan ook in misvloere groot geraak. Hier in Priska, ons het eers Kersmisbome gehad, ons het mooi bosse hout en krinkelpyp het ons geoors vir ons gegee. En mure gevry vir ons het te pyte gehad. Is al wat ek vraag. Nou wil ek net weet, wat nou? Toe gaan ek na Ronald toe en even toe vraag ek hulle. Toe sê ek moet stil bly. Toe gaan sê ek vir my kleinkind, en die warmsom, toe sê kom, stoor die krywe, laat ons huis toe gaan, want as net al die, en die meisiekind het ook vir my gesê, net vir die ANC, die swart vrou, en ek sal nie sy naam vergeet hê. Ek sal nie sy gesig vergeet hê. Het gesê, net vir die ANC, nie vir die oud mense, die ou mense nie. Toe kom loop ek in die warmsom, die huis toe met my kleinkind met die krywe.
All right, as you can hear, the voices of very disappointed elderly ladies that were part of this event last week, both of them saying that they were given food at the event, but not the food hampers. One of them says when they were done eating, the food hampers had disappeared. She doesn't know who received them. The second one had even called her grandchild to bring a wheelbarrow to the event in anticipation of what they would receive so that they could take it back home. And she was told by one of the people that was assisting there that the food parcels were reserved for ANC members only. And she says she'll never forget that lady and the expression that she had on her face when she was telling her this. So she's asking the question, well, what happens now? Because they didn't receive what they were anticipating and what they were promised. But most importantly, who did, I think, is the question on many of the people's minds who walked away empty-handed. So these are just the experiences of some of the elderly that were part of the event. Both of them were at this event in the Northern Cape. So we'll continue the conversation. We'll hear from Ronald and Priscilla in a moment. If you have any more insights that you believe can be useful to the story, would love to hear from you. 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. It's 11:30.
A very good morning to you. With the news headlines, Gemudupi Makhalemele. The Dimbaza Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape has denied bail to the University of Fort Hare's head of investigations, Isaac Blaikise. Police have launched an investigation after a woman was shot dead in Guguletu on the Cape Flats. They say she was a known community activist in crime fighting. And intense fighting has continued in parts of the Gaza Strip regarded by Israel as Hamas strongholds. And those are your headlines. A full news update at midday.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, we continue the conversation on the talking point. So, Ronald, you heard what some of the people in your municipality have had to say about that event. And I think a key question which is important is, what happens now? What must they do now?
Yes, Katie, that is the general feel of our elderly in the municipality. And we know, Katie, and the photos that I've posted shows that most of these parcels didn't even reach elderly people. They reached volunteers of the ANC. Their leaders loaded these hampers into their cars. And even in the wards where they are staying, people didn't receive these hampers. If they claim that they have put when to go and give it to people. And that is what we said with the case that we raised, Katie. We didn't just say we open a case against, the MEC for corruption and fraud in terms of how the event has unfolded. We also said that those ANC leaders who loaded those parcels, they stole them. If the MEC can't explain how they receive these parcels or where they receive these parcels or what right do they have to load these parcels into their cars, then it's stolen property, Katie. Because once they are still in the department's hand and they're handing it to unauthorized people, those people should account. Where did they take the parcels? And that's why we say to the police, they must investigate, because we know that these parcels never reached our people. But Katie, I just want to mention it like this. This is an issue that needs to be investigated. Earlier on your show, there was a caller from Namakwa that also complained about the education department. In our municipality, Katie, they put a fence around the school, which this very same MEC again manipulated the process for 10 million rand. That fence is not even probably 500 meters around it, Katie. It didn't even take more than 2 months to put it. The funds that come to the school is so abused by the SGB. As we sit here now, there's rumors that they use the card of the school to purchase items in their businesses outside. And this MEC refused to investigate these things or give any report about them. But it goes like this, Katie, across the Northern Cape. Like I said, the way your caller has explained today, the problem that the MEC have with us is because in 2021, we in our province, we are the most municipalities from community movements is under coalition governments. And because we've came together to say we need to talk to each other about these things, through the Northern Cape Communities Movement, the MEC says we are politicizing this issue. But we want to know, is he taking food parcels there? How is he handling food parcels in your municipality? How is he doing it in Gamakara? And you'll hear the stories is very similar in how they're handling the tendering process. But nobody is looking, into this, a proper investigation into it.
All right.
But just to close it, Katie, the problem that I'm sitting with now in my ward is the question that you are asking me now. Old people want to know, councillor, what now? are we not going to receive? And that is the answer that we all are looking for. But the MEC is, like I said to you, he promised people at the event, I'm going to come to your tables. Instead, he disappeared through the back door. He's still gone. We don't know what's happening.
Yeah, it really is an unfortunate state of affairs. Priscilla, do you want to come in here on this issue?
Yes, Cathy. It's very unfortunate and unfair what happened in the different places where the parties were hosted. But this is not an exception to the rule. This is the legacy and the modus operandi of the ANC for decades. And like I said, they don't distinguish between state and party. Now, the mandate of the NEC is to provide food at schools through the feeding schemes. And we've got lots of problems around the feeding schemes where food is not always available on demand. So this, for us, is a question of unwanted and wasteful expenditure from the department. And here, the departmental spokesperson could not even reveal the cost factor in terms of what they were spending on these Christmas parties. The department made adjustments earlier to cut the cost on literacy and numeracy skills, and they compromised education, which is their mandate, of our learners in a province where our matric results are some of the poorest in the country. Now, earlier you stated that this case is they said that the case is sub judice, but this is a case that is a matter of public interest, and it is our duty to exercise oversight through our provincial structures. So it's my duty to request an investigation through the Portfolio Committee of Education. It's my duty to alert the Auditor General on this wasteful expenditure in our minds, and it's our duty to keep the NEC accountable for what was happening outside of his mandate. So we were also writing a letter to the NEC to please explain and give answers as to why this expenditure took place. So we have to take this up at another level because it cannot continue as it is. And for them to make the excuse that they want to encourage the elderly to see that people go to school in these specific towns is not good enough. If you look at Merridale, for example, Merridale's got a small primary school. To host a party for 250 elderlies, and if you look at Merridale's community, it's a very small community, I hardly believe that they would have given 250 parcels for the elderly in Merridale, where there's such a small community where they only have a primary school. They don't even have a high school. So this, for me, is just a ploy, another ploy, where they try to regain their hold on our people, where they try to strengthen their arm because, in my opinion, they are on edge because they know that they will be brought down from below 50%. And they must pull out a hair out of a hat, rabbit out of a hat, in order to make ends meet.
All right, Priscilla. We're going to pause it there. I want to take this call from Bongani. You're out in Kuruman. Good morning, Bongani.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Good, no complaints. No, I just needed, I had to ask, just make a comment. The situation here in the Northern Cape is quite rife because we have a number of people that just currently live under the breadline, as you guys are well aware. And Ronald, as a councillor, shouldn't know that he does have constituency powers in order to engage the MEC. What he did there at the incident, when I had to look through the social media platform, it was quite deplorable. And what he said about the lady with blackface, he actually mentioned it in Afrikaans, so I'm quite familiar with Afrikaans for that matter. And he made the same racist comment. It's quite deplorable, especially from the area and the place that we live. Social cohesion. So that's just a quick point that I needed to make, and I just needed to respond to it because irrespective of which party line should be drawn, the people, when the NEC made food available for everyone, method for preschool, because I'm quite aware that they had another thing that they did in Bongani, I think was sometime around last year, and so they even thanked the NEC for that. So now that it all of a sudden it happened in what we would say the colored community, all of a sudden then Ronald had people placed and then to make a whole scene and mockery about it, and people just need food, and and so that's just my point that I needed to make. And you even thanked the very same NEC when after they thank them after the social media and then he apologized a bit. So that's just my thing. He shouldn't use this as a racist tool. He shouldn't use people's circumstances to have his campaign for next year, and Priscilla should be aware of it. Irregular things, a fruitless, wasteful expenditure. The MECs had cheating Parliament. She's in the provincial legislature. She knows that all, including her, all members of Parliament and MPs does have access to have a constituency fees, and they should be able to assist the communities. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that comment, Bongani. Unfortunately, it doesn't help with the situation that we're also primarily dealing with here, right? That you have citizens that were promised these food parcels and they have not received them, and they too are questioning where they have gone, especially if they had been identified and earmarked as part of the rightful beneficiaries. It will be helpful if the MEC and his department just made this information available, which they promised to do, by the way. They promised to do that on air on Friday, and we are still waiting.
Yes, they did. They did try to leverage just by charging from the social media platform. However, when they got there with the buckies, I remember they were driving buckies, and it was Department of Education, and he said, no, it's ANC buckies. But they said, no, let's give the people the food. And he was the one that didn't want any food for that matter. So Ronald should be able to tell the people, like, look, I was the one that denied you guys food. I told them to drive with the Department of Education, which was their bucket. It wasn't the ANC bucket. It was branded, and obviously it was the Department of Education.
Bongani, I think that, the reality is that the lines were blurred because the Department of Education played a role in those lines being blurred. Ronald was not the one that was organizing the event, but in as far as him being racist and using the opportunity to make racist remarks, I'm not aware of that. It's a very important allegation for Ronald to respond to. Ronald? Hello, Ronald? All right, it looks like we've lost him on the line. I think he said goodbye earlier, perhaps. He thought I was rapping with him. Apologies for that. Let me just play some of these WhatsApp voice notes that have also come in on this issue.
Good morning, Sis Katie. Oh, Sis Katie, hey, you touch another issue now. Hey, this thing is happening everywhere. You see, I'm here in Ward 77 in Chaswet, Walbedash. You see, the ANC people, they got this tendency of doing this thing. So I remember when I was a chairperson of the CPF, I got a sponsor, a private sponsor, and then I included everybody. I mean everybody, although you can't take everyone. But now they came to me privately, some of them, they said, hey, how do you do this? Because hey, everybody was happy, especially in the community. But the ANC people, they are doing exactly what the gentleman is saying. This is Bongan from Welbedash East. Thank you.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning, Cathy. I am not surprised with that, the way that ANC is doing. That's the ZANU-PF way of doing things. So, yeah, they are just copying from ZANU-PF. Thank you, Cathy.
Morning, Cathy. It's Tavis from Bloemfontein. This is been happening everywhere. You go to every municipality that is run by the ANC, you will see that how they manipulate things. Even government programs, they turn into ANC programs. You go to the government in Bezos and stuff, you will find people wearing ANC t-shirts, singing ANC struggle songs. While this is a government program, which includes everyone. So the food parcel is been happening everywhere. I can bet on my life that this is happening everywhere. They manipulate these things in order to give these parcels to ANC members. Even blankets. You know, they are playing games with our grandmothers and grandfathers, these people.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
All right, we continue the conversation with the talking point. Ronald, I've literally got 30 seconds before I have to wrap things up for you to respond to Bongani.
Thank you, Katie. Katie, I don't think Bongani even knows what he's talking about. The fact that... Hi, Katie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Ronald.
Yes. The fact that he thinks it's a colored ward doesn't make any sense. Everybody from Priska was there. In fact, this is one of the towns where race doesn't matter. And then, Katie, the second thing around the notion that we wanted to disrupt or we were out of line at the event. After I addressed that matter, Katie, with the volunteers of the ANC, they disappeared. They virtually disappeared. More than 20 of them from that event, including the MEC's family. They disappeared because we addressed the issues that is relevant and makes sense.
Right. All right.
But, Katie, I just want to close by saying, when you speak the truth, Katie, you don't need to worry where you say what, because you only have one story. The reason the MEC is not here is because if he's going to spin a story, he's going to have to remember what is lied. And Katie, I just want to ask you guys, these cases take very long to resolve. We must really put pressure on our investigation so that these matters get finalized quicker.
All right.
And that the next event can be better. But thank you very much for this opportunity, Katie, and for addressing the issue of Priska and of the Northern Cape.
No
Thank you
problem.
very much.
Ronald February is a ward councillor in Ward 2 for the Siatemba Community Movement, and Priscilla Isaacs is a DA member. That's where we leave it for today on The Talking Point. We're back with you again tomorrow. Up next, the book reading.
Chelsea FC is not impressed with their current position. They want to ensure Sheffield United grabs nothing at Stamford Bridge.
Raheem Sterling, the big nipper, Chelsea 11.
Meanwhile, Sheffield United are also not comfortable in the danger zone.
Look, Bernie's header! And it drops into the far corner of the net.
Who will enjoy the festive season with victory? The Blues or the Blades? This is the Premier League. Catch the exhilarating clash between Chelsea FC and Sheffield United FC on Saturday 16 at 4 p.m. live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The book reading. Please note the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SFM presents another episode of Simply Larry, read by Simpiwe Nkosi, written by Elias Masilela.
This tradition carried on for many years, with little change in pattern. Much as Lobusuku represents a generation that far predates Sister J.E., she is quick to point out that Sister J.E.'s footprint at the school has had an impact even on those who never directly associated with her. The impact comes through their younger relatives and children, as well as the effect she has had across the country. This is clearly recorded in the monumental story of the MITC, where she worked closely with a certain Mage, Miss Nogukanya Kametse of the BMEP project, funded by USAID. From these early beginnings, the MITC has increased in size and in the range of skills offered. Between 1992 and 1994, a second center was built in Nhlangano and given the name Nhlangano Agricultural Skills Training Center, NASTC. It is built on government land, and the buildings were also financed by overseas donors and built by trainees under the supervision and guidance of their instructors. NASTC was officially opened by His Majesty King Mswati III on June 1994, while giving it the Swazi name Ndungunye. Thereafter, a project to build a third center began in Sitegi, on land belonging to the government. There were many problems initially, which meant the work progressed slowly. However, it is now fully operational, offering 7 courses. The center was given the name Sitegi Industrial Training Center, SITC. The establishment of the 2 additional centers after the MITC gave birth to the collective name Swaziland Skills Centers, SSC, which is the brand name for all 3 centers. Our 3 centers are erected in 3 different regions of the country in order to cover as wide a population as possible. Among these regions, we have multiple orphans due to the effects of HIV and AIDS. We are the biggest institution that offers such a service for the underprivileged youth who have been failed by the formal education system in the country, and with so much figures, we can only afford to absorb a certain number each year because of the funding limitations from our valued donors, K&H from Germany and Colonel Johnson from the United Kingdom. K&H is a donor who came to assist SSC in paying tuition for a number of trainees who are underprivileged. Part of the contributions from K&H go to assist in the daily operations of the centers. Colonel Johnson, on the other hand, assists those needy trainees in paying for their tuition and tools only. This institution remains an essential signature documentation of the work of Sister J.E., which will remain a major contribution to the well-being of the Swazi child. It was also in her role as the convener of the Duke of Edinburgh's award in Swaziland that her luster was observed and felt across all corners of the kingdom. It was under her leadership that Prince Edward visited Swaziland. The Whoopee in J.E. While I had the opportunity of exposure to many old girls within and without my cohort who shared widely differing perspectives of Sister J.E., all of these converged into a common view painted in a joint interview between Pindi and Bongiwe Habedi, also known as Mbijana in her cohort. Describing Sister J.E., they said, "She did not have narrow views, driven merely by religious belief and faith. Have no doubt, she had her faith, and she was very strong in her faith. But she was just more accepting of other people's views and values. Come weekend, she would put her habit down and she would jump into her jeans. She would mix with the people, mix with the girls. Sister J.E. and one Sister Sandra would sit with us and have girly chats. This is how St. Michael's girls got to wear trousers at school. It was proudly Sister J.E.'s influence. She understood how cold the winters at the Hill were, so she allowed us to wear tracksuit pants under our uniforms. She was feisty, very feisty. She would stand up for her beliefs. More importantly, she would stand up for the girls. An important digression. The St. Michael's school uniform was prominent and popular on the streets of Manzini. Introduced in 1963, it consists of a grey skirt, white shirt, and maroon jersey or blazer, matching that of its sister school, St. Christopher's. She was human. Describing her Ubuntu, humanness, Bongi says, Sister J.E. was the type of person who would let you get away with murder. Most probably, if she were to catch you drinking, she is the type of person who would most likely have said, "You better sober up before you get caught." We all burst out laughing as good old memories came gushing through our minds simultaneously. We reminded ourselves of a popular drink that was in vogue among the girls at the time, Esprit. What would become a common recollection for every St. Michael's old girl comes in the answer to the first question I asked Bongiwe, namely, what is the one thing that Sister J.E. would irritate you with? With a deep sigh, she struggled to find an answer. After a few long moments, she answered, "I cannot think of anything. Nothing. Nothing. She was always so jolly." That became the signature response and characterization of the much-adored Sister J.E. The older cohort, predating Sister J.E., cannot hide its jealousy of the treatment that the later cohorts enjoyed. They recalled how restricted their lives were, relatively speaking. What was common between these cohorts was that there was a popular disco in each period in Manzini. In the period predating Sister J.E., there was the regionally popular Moulin Rouge, which was the stomping ground of many famous South Africa bands such as the All-Rounders, the Soul Fingers, and many more. During the period of Sister J.E., there was Las Vegas. The key difference was that the older girls were never allowed to go to the disco, but whenever they were out on town leave, they would always make it a point to sneak into the disco and enjoy an hour or two of free dancing and rubbing shoulders with the famous artists. The later cohorts enjoyed limited freedom to go to Las Vegas under the guardianship of Sister J.E. These were very different eras. But there were also many very personal stories and experiences. One of these is that of Sibongile van Dam, also known as Spinks to many. She starts off with a very generous description. She was one of the classiest and good-looking nuns that came to our school, a great fundraiser. Both her and Father MacDonald were instrumental in introducing swimming galas. Lucia Mapalala was one of our best swimmers, and prior to this, the galas used to take place at Salesian. I learned to dive and swim at the Salesian swimming pool. She goes on to heap praises on the Salesian and St. Michael's institutions when she says, "One of the most memorable was Father Summers, who used to preach at Mjengo, where I did my junior secondary. An amazing priest. When I failed 1 year at university owing to a pregnancy, he sponsored my tuition, accommodation, and books. I was surprised that they had a fund that was meant for girls that got pregnant and risked dropping out of school. My sister, who was doing typing at Scott, got her typing machine from him. I still have this antique piece." One older girl, Daphne Miles, retorts, "Many former girls found themselves vulnerable when they got Mvasi, university, because the school was too structured. It offered too much protection, to a point where the girls did not know what to do with the freedom acquired by being at university. I am one of them. But many of those girls who were expected to end up in the gutter mellowed like good wine. Look at me." She throws a wry smile. Why a nun? Every person I spoke to landed on the same spot. Why a nun? The crudest and sincerest variant of this question came from another old girl, Desiree Alexander, when she said, "The first impression I had of J.E. was that she was in the wrong profession." Why? She was vibrant, made things happen for us at school, like outings, mountain climbing, which I must say was the least of our favorite activities on our to-do list. We wanted to go to town, meet with them Salesian boys as they call them then, St. Mark's, St. Christopher's boys, or just to set our eyes on them and feel we had seen the loves of our lives. Whether boy acknowledged our presence or not, it did not matter. J.E. would never read our correspondence before giving us our letters. J.E. loosened the tight reins on us somewhat. I could never quite place my finger on a role at school, as she was not the head teacher. Neither was she a Sunday school teacher. But after school and weekends, we would see her a lot, and we loved her. Absolutely. She, unlike the others who were on the quiet and reserved side, whether it was because our English was not polished and not our first language either, I will never know. J.E. would want to know about you personally, making us feel she was in our lives and caring. Most of what we asked for, she gave to us. I remember once at the playground, I came face to face with Mangu's wrath, Mrs. Ncube, the headmistress. But bengangile shem. In all honesty, I had been naughty. Sister J.E. came to my tiniest rescue. J.E. was someone you could talk to, take your issues to, and you were sure to get assistance, even if it was just an ear to listen. Talking about her driving skills, she says, "Abelala ngekona loyo sister loyo." Literally, I tell you. There is no English translation to the statement, but simply that she was a very skillful driver. She concludes, "All in all, this nun made it happen for us." Another old girl from the class of 1972, Dr. Dudu Mamba, echoes these views when she says, "This Sister J.E., even though I left before she joined the school, I have come to know her as some sort of a rebel. She left her vocation when the Anglican Church permitted the ordaining of women bishops. What pushed her over the cliff was when the first woman bishop was ordained in Swaziland. She was a Tarzan of her time."
That was another episode of Simply Larry, read by Simpiwe Nkosi. The book is published by Number 43 Publishing and is available online and as an audiobook. www.number43trilonipark.org. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45, Monday to Thursday on The Talking Point. It is produced for SAFM by Jeffrey Matenji in partnership with Number 43 Publishing. Technical production by Wazman Manglele.
Well, it's just after 12 on Monday, the 11th of December 2023. A very warm welcome to Updated Noon here on SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour,
there have been reports of several assaults underground, some of which are fairly serious. One employee who resurfaced yesterday was taken to hospital.
The situation at Gold One Mine in Springs, east of Johannesburg, remains volatile.
We should not be forced to choose between those who only want to break things and those who have long ago forgotten how to build things. We should not act as if we have no choice.
Well, former anti-apartheid activist and businessman Roger Jardine says that South Africans will be faced with a very tough decision next year. Coming up in sport,
Oosthuizen and Schwartzel battling for the Alfred Dunhill Championship. It looks as if it's going Oosthuizen's way, and I'll wrap up some of the football over the weekend as well.
Looking forward to that with John Gericke later on in the show. Please share your views with us. You can write to us. 41391 is the SMS line number. You will be charged R1.50 per SMS. You can also get in touch with us via X or Facebook at SABC News_radio. That, of course, is our new handle at SABC News_radio. And you can also reach us via the hashtag update at noon. If that is too much for you to take in, we will actually share that, but you can also send us a WhatsApp voice note on 0826923909. And these and more stories coming up on this Monday edition of Updated Noon. First, though, the latest news with Medupi Makhalimele.
SABC News, independent and impartial.
Thank you very much, Sister Sakina. The top stories this hour: South Africans stuck in Gaza, back home, and bail denied in the UFH murder case. A very good afternoon. Cabinet has welcomed the arrival back home of 19 South Africans who had been stuck in Gaza. This was announced by Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, in Pretoria today during a briefing on the outcomes of a cabinet meeting held on the 8th of December. Ntshavheni says that the country is grateful to the government of Egypt for granting the South Africans safe passage through the Rafah crossing into its country. The citizens were unable to leave Gaza following the outbreak of conflict between Palestinian group Hamas and the Israeli government on October the 7th. Meanwhile, intense fighting continues in parts of the Gaza Strip regarded by Israel as Hamas strongholds. Hamas officials in Gaza estimate that about 18,000 Palestinians have been killed since the conflict began, while Israel says it has